Okay.
Okay. Again, Shalom Aleichem and Freilich Hanukkah. We didn't have a shiur last week, so we're going to try to go through the Gemara up to where we are. So, of course, to talk out a few points that in the Gemara, in the bottom of Kuf and Aleph, we had Shmuel's din that we spoke about last couple of times in Paras Map and Makadesh, and the Gemara asked, "Bamra of Tachlifa are Dini Amr Shmuel Kashem Shemasik in the Kiddush and Kuf and Beis Kach Masik in the Havdalah. My Masikin Lav Lakir Shulchan." Or it means if it's Masikin, it means Lakir Shulchan Lo Lamapa. So it's going back to Shmuel's din. It's just one akuda on this Kach Masikin Havdalah. So Tosa says here that it is a din Masikin Havdalah. Rav Isla the command the Havdalah Eno Kobas. Maybe Schilu and Masikin Havdalah Polig Shmuel. That Rav is Cholik at Shmuel. Shmuel says over here, it's just like a Mafsik for Kiddush, also Mafsik for Havdalah, which is something which is a little bit tamua, especially if you learn like Tosfos and all those Rishonim we're talking about that hold that it's a real chiyuv to be Mafsik. It's not just a Tosefes din or a nice thing to do that, but it's a chiyuv because of the din Shabbos Kavas Nafsha, Shabbos Kavas itself to be mechayiv you to do Kiddush, and there's an Isser Achila and everything before that. So what is the kashem? Why would be an Isser Achila? What's the kavas on for Havdalah that would apply to the same thing as Kiddush? There's no such din as Motzei Shabbos kavas l'naf Shabbos. There's no Isser Achila be'etzam Motzei Shabbos except for Isser Achila kodem Kiddush. I'm sorry, kodem Havdalah, but there's no din kavas. So if you're in the middle of the Suda, what would be mechayiv you to stop the Suda like Shabbos would according to Shmuel on Havdalah? So that we understand Rab, but for I think the din of Shmuel here by Havdalah is Sarachin is really difficult to understand. So I'm not answering that. I'm just pointing out the Shverkeit. Something difficulty here in this din of Havdalah. And okay, we go on to say here. Just going to bother here by something. Okay. Rabba Rahuna Ikla Beshkalusa Isataka Kame Paras Mapa the Kiddush. Taname Hachish Aim of Venus or Shulchan El Imken Kiddush and Heavy Paras Mapa Makadesh. So you see that all these shitas are holding the din Paras Mapa Makadesh, which Tosas brought down before, that signifies that the halacha is like Shmuel. Now here the Rashbam speaks out in this Ma'aseh of the Rosh Kalusa. Rashbam speaks out in the name of the Shiltas that why are we being parsed off Makadesh? But Taima could parish b'Shiltas. The long Rashbam, Garcinan, he brings b'shem the Shiltas, the Rachaigon, the Parshas v'Yishma Yisra, Kasabu Hachi, Bekruvi Taka Mikame the Diktish, the Kedusha the Shabso Lam Karbinan. My Taima could to Heche to Tesi Suda Yakar the Shabbos. You can't bring the Suda out, or in this case, you can't continue the Suda unless you first are Paras Mapa, in order that you should be, what they're talking about, Kribi Taka, bringing the actual table or the mana, in order that the Suda should come out L'Chavod Shabbos. So it's in the Chavod Shabbos that the Suda should come out for Shabbos. Or in this case, if you're being Paras Mapa Makadesh, then it's bringing out L'Yakar the Shabbos. It's the Indian of Chavod Shabbos. So the Shulta says that if meal already was there because you're in the middle of this meal already, then you're not going to bring the table out l'chavod Shabbos, but you're going to at least put a paras mapa makadesh l'chavod Shabbos. So the Tosfos also brings this down the same in the Shultas right here. The thing is, there's a difference over here. I think that just to point out that based on what we spoke about in the past shiurim, that the Rashbam holds that the whole din of Paras Mapa Makadesh is only a hitter, a liba derb yosi. There really is no isser at all. There's no isser of continuing to eat. It's just a maila, it's a sefes maila, and here the Rashbam finally is magala where it comes from. It comes from this shiltas. That's the Indian of Kavod Shabbos, the Yakar de Shabsa. That's the hezber, the sefes maila, this extra hitter of being Paras Mapa Makadesh is the Indian of Kavod Shabbos, that the meal should come out with Kavod Shabbos. So that makes sense according to the Rambam L'Shitasa that there is no Isser over here. According to Tosfos, there is an Isser, so it's got to be far more than just covered Shabbos. And in fact, when Tosfos brings Tosfos Dermaskal She'en Mevinas Shulchan, the Tosfos brings it down when it get to not to the din of Paras B'Am V'Kadosh, just to the din of every Kiddush, regular Kiddush. When you start the Kiddush for Shabbos, you're not in the middle of a meal. So there he says the tam to be Paras Mappa and then B'Shas Kiddush and then to take it off. So that is an Indian of Kavod Shabbos, because it comes out that you wait till after the Kiddush that you're already Kovea B'Peh, that it's Shabbos, you're Kaddish of Shabbos, and now you bring out the Suda. So you bring it out all your day, the priestess Mappa, and then opening the Mappa, Kavod Shabbos. So it makes sense that Tosfos would bring this down only to Gabi a regular Kiddush. And he says it in respect to the fact that right now we don't have the ability to carry a shulchan out. We don't have these little TV tables they used to have. That's not how we don't eat on little TV tables. We eat on a big table. So that's difficult to carry that out. So it says so it's enough to be bismanazeh to be paras mappa kaddish. So that's in covered Shabbos. But anachanami, according to Tosfos himself, the time of the shiltos would not really apply to a case where you're in the middle of eating the Suda and then you're paras mappa kaddish. True, you might be Mekayim also covered Shabbos, but there's a much greater reason, even a more important reason, that there's an Isser over here to continue eating, and you're showing the Isser of Achila by being paras mappa. So it's a real key to be paras mappa.
Is there any consideration of just bringing the challah off the table and bringing it back? Like, why does it have to be the whole shulchan? Like, what is it? I would think that there's like a middle ground. Like you could take the food off the table and then bring it back, or like.
You mean bismanazeh?
Yeah, I think it was actually Rabbi Ravinsky's question.
Yeah, well, I mean, but I mean, in Hanami, the ideal thing would probably be to bring just to bring the food out afterwards. But the thing is, the challahs are supposed to be the Rishas Kiddush.
What would they do? What when they were Akiras HaShulchan? What did they do? They took the challahs away.
Yeah, so that's a good question. It's a good question. We're saying that there's an Indian for the college stuff going to be there.
I have to text him that he just missed his question. I think it was Rabbi Ravinsky's question while we were learning. I'll apologize for him. I think we have a gala coming up on Sunday.
Okay. Hatzlacha. Okay. It's a good question. Just take away maybe if we don't know what these tables were like, if they're all decked out in food and everything like that. So we did take them off and on and on. It's hard. It's a Shalom Mitzias. I don't really know what the Mitzias was. It's hard to answer that. To really know how they used to set things up.
Can I ask a side question branched off of that?
Yeah.
So based on this Gemara, it sounds like just like today, if somebody wants to put out like salads on the table or something like that, or like dips on the table, it sounds like those should also be covered. The Ikar of the Shabbos, like, because it says here they would paris mappa, the mashmalos was that they would cover not just the challah, but that they were covering like the whole, like they had the whole table was in the set with everything and was in the other room, and then they would just bring it out. So if according to Tosfos that's what we're trying to be Mekayim, and it's just because our tables are too big, we don't do that, then it would seem like covering the challah wouldn't be sufficient for that first, at least according to for the she'iltos reason. It maybe work for the man and zeichel man, stuff like that, but it's like, is there such an ikr today? Is there such an Indian today to like go and?
I have seen that mentioned based on that shita, but I think there's two things. Number one, there's room to say that the Mekayim, the Yakar D'Shavsa by the ikr suda, which is considered the pas. So it's not so clear if the shiltos really meant the whole everything or not. Number one. Number two, you do have two other shitas over here. It's a shalom, this hitter of covering the pas. You have two other shitas. You have the Tosfos brings down the second shot in Tosfos is Zechel Laman Taka, like you just said, which clearly, according to that, it would only be that pas which is doing it to man. And also the tour, if you saw the tour brings down a third reason, saying the Yerushalmi that it shouldn't be busha to the past, since it's roy to it comes kodim the pasuk the bracha before yain, and your chita is the first thing, and we're going ahead and making kiddush on the yain, so it's considered busha to the pas to the for making kiddush on the yain, so we cover it for that. Then for that also, there would not be a reason to cover the rest of everything else, as long as there's no busha
like,
on the salad.
So based on the Yerushalmi, I think the Kaf HaChaim said you're supposed to cover like mizonos, like if you have like cake on the table or something like that, anything that's mizonos, because it's also chita, it also comes first in the pasuk, so you would also have to cover it before doing kiddush. I know that's like the custom amongst the Sephardim. That's what we cover any kind of mizonos.
Yeah,
but
even in Kabbalah and the Kabbalah, the Sfora, since Chatchila, one can't actually make kiddush on mizonos. You can't just like make the whole kiddush on the mizonos. You need real pas for that. You need so if you wouldn't have wine to make it on mizonos, unless you're going to eat like, I don't know, a ton of mizonos or beitzim, it's I would say I would like a ton of that. There's no question that there's busha on that, because it's only busha on something which you could l'chatchila make kiddush on, but something which it would be even a b'diavad or not at all to make kiddush on, even though it might be kind of a pasuk. It's not just kind of a pasuk, but it's kind of a pasuk for something that you could be make kiddush on, or the chatchila you should be make kiddush on. Could only theirs or any busha. I hear I could also not that way, but it could be that's why our meaning is
right.
That they're not so makbid to cover the mizonos. Okay, so there's another nafkamina between the days over here, between these, is how long should it be covered? To what point do you finish covering it? So if you hold if it's because of busha, then it would be clearly only be until the end of kiddush. Once you're done doing kaddish, no busha anymore, so you can uncover the pas. So the shasa motzi, there'd be no reason for it to be covered. If it's the yakar de shavsa, you could clear also exactly to what point. It's not would be so clear, but according to the time of man, dumya to man, so that is actually a machlokas. There are different. The Pri Megadim, the Shiur brings down machlokas, the Pri Megadim and the Chayodim, how long it should be covered, also b'shasa motzi or not. And for it's telling in this shiloh, like it's dumya to man. So is it enough that it was dumya taman b'shas kiddush? At that point, after that point, it doesn't matter anymore? Or since the ikar dumya taman is when the achilas apas is dumya taman, so maybe it should be covered till the point that you make a motzi, and it should be dumya taman at that point as well. So Shiur brings 2 days about it, and it's in halacha ma'aseh. It's a machlokas aruch shulchan and the Shulchan Aruch Harav. How to go, but let's go like so. I personally do keep it covered until the Hamotzi, because it doesn't cost a whole lot to do that, and you're kind all sheets is that way. But sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes you have a lot of pas, whatever. It's not so easy to be doing that. So I just want to digress for a second once we're on the subject, because when else would we talk about this? Just one Misa and one Peeper Havana of what's going on over here. Not al derech halacha. There's a Misa with a Chavetz Chaim that he was visiting somebody. He was away for Shabbos out of Radin. He was the guest of a very chashuv, wealthy balabas for a Friday night. So they came in from shul. The wife was so busy preparing and getting the house ready. She was so nervous having such a great, the gadol hador coming to their house for Shabbos, and she did everything so perfectly. And by the time Shabbos came in, they went to shul. But so by the time her husband went to shul, she collapsed on the couch and just fell asleep. So everything was ready. The table was set. Everything was. One thing she forgot to do was to cover the bread. But she fell asleep before she did that. So Chavetz Chaim came in. The balabas brought in the Chavetz Chaim to the house after shul, and so the big covet bringing the Chavetz Chaim to his house. Walks in, and she's sleeping on the couch, and the challah is uncovered. So he goes to his wife and says, "I can't believe it! You forgot to cover the challah. The Chavetz Chaim is here. I can't believe it!" And she got up and she was so embarrassed. She ran to get the challah covered. So the Chavetz Chaim called over the person, the balabas, and said, "Here's the Chaim." He said, "Why do we cover the challah? Why do we cover the challah? because the challah shouldn't have busha when you make kiddush. Have you ever seen a challah have busha? Ever seen the challah turn red? So, Ella, what are you supposed to be learning from that? Don't miss the forest of the trees. What are you learning from that? If you can't be mevayish, even a challah, kosher can, you can't be mevayish another person. So how could you mevayish your wife for not covering the challah? That was just a little message that sometimes you can't. We learn these pratim, you can't miss the forest of the trees. You can't. You gotta see what's going on more deeply. So another thought that I had, and this is a huge arichos, but I just wanted to just touch on it for a second, that the time of man. So why should the challahs be zecher l'man? Why is it so important that it should be zecher l'man? We have should be shas kiddush, after kiddush, even when you make the motzi. It's so important to be, the challah should be like man. Should be zecher l'man. So Pashtus says, because brought down is that because the man fell double on Erev Shabbos. That's why we have two. We have lechem mishnah because there was a double portion of man on Erev Shabbos. Zecher to that we have. So we see that the man is not only inside the covering, but the man is also represented in the whole lechem mishnah. The whole surah sadavar where we come motzi on Shabbos all revolves around man. So, and that alone could be enough. I was just, thinking a step further that it's not just the zecher l'man ba'alma, something that's really happened to be at that time in history, happened to be something about Shabbos, but there's something much more deep, much deeper about the man that we have to remember every time we go into Shabbos. There's a shaila, there's a kasha on Rashi in the beginning of in Parshas Bereishis says, and by the very first Shabbos says that Vayvarach oso v'yikadosh oso. By the very first Shabbos says lashon Vayvarach oso and v'yikadosh oso. So Rashi says over there in Parshas Bereishis, what's Vayvarach oso? V'yvarach b'man, that's going to fall double on Erev Shabbos, and v'yikadosh oso b'man, that it's not going to fall on Shabbos. So affect the morale in Gorarye that without, it's all the whole thing's al shema asid. You can't just say v'yvarach v'yikadosh by virtue of the fact that what the essence of Shabbos is already right then when Shabbos was first created. Why did bring it? What are we doing? What are we bringing man in for? So it says the morale that of course Shabbos was already kaddish before, but the man not falling on Shabbos, that's a raya that of the kedusha Shabbos. That's a raya to the kedusha Shabbos. So the morale, if anything, made it worse. What does the Torah need a raya for? What do we need a raya? The Torah says v'yvarach v'yikadosh. Shabbos is mevorach and it's mekudesh. So what do you need a raya from something later on in history? The man didn't fall on Shabbos to tell us that it's taka kaddish. So Hutner in Pachad Yitzchak explains in a Sefer in Shabbos. Again, we'll just touch on the surface of this, but the nakuda he speaks out is that every Shabbos is not just, we say that, we all teach our kids, Hashem rested. What does it mean that he rested? What does that even mean? We know that on Shabbos Gufa, we can't do malachos, but Shabbos, the world goes on, kamin haganoig. The world goes on, babies are born, and flowers bloom, and animals come to life on Shabbos, just like they do on Thursday and Friday. So what exactly is it that there's a rest what rest is going on there? So what he explains also from the morale, a different morale that explains that there's a Mishnah in Shabbos inside the Gimel that if you carry out a certain amount of, if you carry out a kli on Shabbos, from Shus Yachid to Shus Rabban, you're chayav. But if the kli is holding food and the food is pachos mikashir, so then you're pater not only on the food because less than a shear, you're also pater on the kli because the kli is bottled to the food and the food's less than a shear. So pater afal kli, Mishnah says. So Hutner based on morale says that Mishnah is not just one isolated din of Shabbos, but that really is Megala, the whole Yesod of Shabbos. What Shabbos is really about is there's a bittul of the Olam HaGashmi to the Olam HaRuchni. It becomes batal mavutal to the Olam HaRuchni. So the fact that things are, the Kadosh Baruch Hu's Megala, the Ruchnius, the whole Tachlis of Bria on Shabbos, and when even though things still might be born or blossom on Shabbos, that all that happens, all that we have to stop everything. We can't do anything. We can't say, oh, it's batal, even though we have that particular halacha, but we can't say, oh, I can go ahead and keep on doing malacha on Shabbos because it's batal to the olam ruchni. Because fakir, we're mevatel ourselves to olam ruchni by stopping everything. But Klapi HaKadosh Baruch Hu, his kedusha of Shabbos is that he's megala the olam ruchni, that the sum total of the tachas sabriya is all megula, skala and Shabbos, and even though things might be born and blossom, but those things are all tuffle to the olam ruchni, and therefore it's a shvisa in their own innate importance, and they become secondary. They become tuffle, something much higher. So I'm not going to go into all of his rayas to that. That's the yesod that he says. That's really the yesod of Shabbos. But there was the only exceptions to that rule would be even Klapi HaKadosh Baruch Hu would be if Hashem has something that he's megala every day, that it itself is part of the olam ruchni. It's part of the same olam ruchni that everything else is becoming batal to. If Hashem would create something every day that is a chelik of that olam ruchni, so then it can't be batal to anything because it is the olam ruchni. So that would be man. Man is the example of something which the Ramban brings down Chazals that that's the food that Malach Yasharis often also, and that's the tal she'asi l'hachis l'samesim. That's all the man. The man is pure ruchnis. It's the Malach Yasharis eat it. It got concretized into looking like something food, but it was nivla bevarim. It didn't really have a physical connotation to it. It was really like nenem is v'shchina. It was like we're really living on the connection to the shchina through the man. Since the man is a chelik of that olam ruchni, the chelik of the olam asid, so it can't become batal to the olam ruchni because that's what it is. So the only way that you can show that it's Shabbos, Klapi HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for him to do it is that it has to actually stop. Because it can't keep on going and say, well, it's okay, it keeps on going, it's batal something. No, it is olam ruchni. So the only way Hashem to show it's Shabbos, so the Shabbos Mekudesh, is for the man to stop. So it comes out that the man is not just an example that it's going to be the hafsakas aman, the man stopping on Shabbos, is megala what it means, the veikadosh also, what Kaddish really what it connotes, and the yesod of Shabbos is that the kedusha Shabbos is the olam akashmi is batal to the olam ruchni. So the Rashi is bringing down something that's not just a raya like a Torah's raya. Hashem needs a raya. It's a raya to what the veikadosh means, to the kedusha Shabbos and how it works. So that's why I think it's so central to we start every Shabbos with Lechem Mishnah and covering it like man, because we bring Shabbos in with the Zeichel of man, because man is really what is megala to us, the whole yesod of kedusha Shabbos. So I thought that crossed my mind when we were seeing this tosis. Okay, moving on. We're at the end of the Amud. Osum b'nei Adam shekidshu b'beis haknesses. Okay, starting this again, you have to take a deep breath. Amar Rav, yidei yain lo yatsu. If they want to go, according to Rav, if they want to go back and home and drink more wine, they have to make a new bread beer guffin. They weren't yot say the birch yain.
Sorry, Rebbe, did Rebbe start the sugya of how long do we cover the bread for?
Sorry, how what?
How long do we cover the bread for?
What I just spoke at me, the child, how long to keep it covered?
Right.
So that I just mentioned that the machlokes are in the Mishnah Berurah, Chayotim, and Creed Megadim, and it's halacha ma'aseh, it's the Aruch HaShulchan and the Shulchan Aruch HaRav. But Chayotim says, I think the Aruch HaShulchan goes like the Chayotim, keep it covered until Hamotzi, and Shulchan Aruch HaRav says the end of Kiddush, I believe. I'm not switching it. Pretty sure.
It wasn't like something deeper. There wasn't like something more than that we needed to see.
On that, I don't think so. I mean, I think it's just totally on the timing, or we said that according to the time of Usha, there's no question. Of course, it's only after the Kiddush. It would only be according to the time of Man. that I think the whole Hakira is really, the whole Machlokes is really within the time of Mon. They're trying to be machar with that, and then the question is, how long do you have to? Is it enough to show that it's Mon b'shas Kiddush, or should it be b'shas Achila when you come to eat it? It should show that it's Mon.
Okay.
I think that's the. Okay. So again, so Osam B'nei Adam Shekisha basic Nesses. Rav says you need a new Beper Gafen because there's a Shini Makam copy that, but the Kiddush Yatsu. Where you say the Kiddush, you don't have to make a new Kiddush if you heard Kiddush in shul, even though you didn't eat there. Shmuel Amar Afi de Kiddush Yatsu, you weren't Yotzei Kiddush. El Rav Lama le Kiddush Beisei. According to Rav, if you already Yotzei in shul, why make Kiddush at home? Because Hotzi Bana V'Bnei Beisei, for to mutzi the rest of your family that were not in shul. And Hanami, you already Yotzei, but you're supposed to mutzi them. Shmuel Lama le Kiddush Beisei. According to Shmuel Fakir, if you're not Yotzei, why make a Kiddush in shul? That the orchim, they eat and drink and go to sleep in shul, which we'll see maybe next time, upcoming Tosos, that there's an Isser Taka B'chila and Shena and a basic Nessus. So how could it be in shul? It must be the Chadar Masmuchim, so the other rooms that are in the shul, not the actual shul they daven in. Was the shul the time damer shul ain't Kiddush ala makom suda. It's only going to be for those that are eating there because shul holds ain't Kiddush ela b'makom suda. Okay, so now a few things here. Tosos and the Tosos over here, you did Kiddush Yatsu, according to Rav. There's some points in Tosos I'm not sure if I'm going to go into now. Well, let's just say one diuk I had in Tosos over here that I just want to point out. He says, "When you're the halacha Shmuel, the Amar ain't Kiddush ala makom suda." The halacha is like Shmuel, avagav the alma halacha karabi. So we're usually passing like Rav over Shmuel by Yisurim. This is a question of Isra over here. We got Rabbi Yochanan saw the Kaman Rav. We see that Rabbi Yochanan later on also holds like Rav. Hacha halacha Shmuel, Rav Huna v'Rabba v'Abaya kulus fi'uch b'samuch en Kiddush makom suda. We have a number of members we're going to see coming up that they all hold en Kiddush makom suda. So that's machriya like Shmuel over Rav. And pasuk mechila storm. That's the psak also of Nissim going. But makadesh shadaitu lechel b'makam acher yachal lahotzi esa ochlin sham to the dihu having makom suda. So even though we pass on like Shmuel, he says that if you're makadesh over here in one place to motzi the people that are eating there, and you have das to eat somewhere else, still you can be motzi them and their kiddush. He says the Stemus of Gemara, when it says that we make kiddush in shul to be motzi the orchim, it's mashma the orchim themselves are not the ones that are making the kiddush. It's one of us. It's the shlik sibur or some other person, chashuv person in the shul, the president, who knows, makes the kiddush for the orchim, because we're making it lahutzi as orchim v'dechavasam, but we ourselves are not eating there. So you see from here that I can be mekadosh for, like I can go into somebody's house, and this is very, very davar matzui that people will go into, let's say, an almana. They have all kinds of different people that have had a minute to go around to different people. There was a Yid in Yerushalayim, used to go to the hospital every Erev Shabbos and go around all the rooms and make kiddush for all the people, all the old people and everything, with nursing homes, stuff like that, to make, and then he would get in the bus and go home. Which Rishon Zalman has a truth about that, whether you can go in a bus after you make kiddush. That's all another shiloh. Once you make kiddush, does it automatically chal on your Shabbos or not? So, because you're saying Mekadosh Shabbos for them, but in fact you could say it can only be if it becomes Shabbos for you, or maybe not. So that's side shiloh. But the point is that from this tosis, the ability for us to do that, which would be midin arvus. At this point, you're not being yotzi yourself. That can be motzi acherim. That's what the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah. Midin arvus, like that can be motzi while I'm not motzi as myself. The ride from the Gemara that somebody else made the kiddush for b'nei kish. Just the lashon of tosis is a hara that he says chen mashma shtama echad b'nei ira I'm a kaddish v'knesses. What's the orchim? But it's because he says daitu lechel b'makam acher. Let's say this person would not be daitu lechel b'makam acher. if I would go and make kiddush, let's say I'm having a tainus chalom this Shabbos. I don't plan to eat the whole Shabbos. I have a tainus chalom, which you're allowed to do, to be fast on Shabbos over that. Shabbos we have to make another tainus for that, but the Maisa, I'm allowed to make that tainus on Shabbos. So in daiti lechol b'makom acher. So would Tosha still say I could be mekadosh for them, mimotzi them, even though I'm not going to plan to eat it at all? Before it would make sense that it could, because Arba should apply whether I'm fasting or not. I have Arba for everybody else. So if that's the case, then I'm just on the lesson Tosfos. So why does he say the mekadosh shadaitu lechol b'makom acher? Why is that important? Of course, he's going to eat someplace else. What else is he going to do unless he's fasting? So why does that have to say that? Just unless he's saying orcha demilsa, usually people are always normally people are going to be eating somewhere else. It doesn't really mean it ladina, but why does he have to say it? So I'm just not saying anything more about it. I'm just pointing out how
Rabbi's saying that Tosfos holds that Shmuel holds it's an iker that you have the das to eat somewhere else.
I'm just wondering. Tosfos says that those words. So what's Tosfos alluding to? Why does he have to say that? Just Hamakadosh. You should have said. If we see from the Gemara, Hamakadosh lacher alpha pishu eno el chelsham, he can be motzi them. That would have been enough to say that he's not eating there. What do I care that he plans to eat somewhere else? Unless it matters that he's going to eat somewhere else for some reason. I'm not sure why it should matter, but I'm just pointing out a shverkeit in Lashon Tosfos.
But if Tosfos holds that the halacha is like Shmuel, and Shmuel holds that you need to have kiddush b'makom suda, so then according to that, wouldn't he have to have das to eat somewhere else?
Well, the das to eat somewhere else
would be sufficient for the das of the people hearing.
For Kira, according to Shmuel, that in kiddush b'makom suda, the fact that he has das to eat somewhere else should be lo ma'alav l'morid. It should, of course, shouldn't make a difference because I couldn't be yotzei my kiddush here al das to eat over there because he holds ein kiddush b'makom suda. So the fact that I'm eating over there, doesn't make no difference. He's talking in Shmuel, saying halacha like Shmuel. Even so, we see from the Gemara of Shmuel that they made mekadosh lacherim in Shmuel. So we see that it could be if you plan to eat somewhere else. So he should have just said, you see from the Gemara that even if you're not eating there, it can be mitzvah them. Why does he have to add in that he does plan to eat somewhere else? So I just remain with the difficulty in that lashon and Tosfos.
Doesn't that get involved? The das gets involved. Like I got confused with this, but there's like even within Shmuel that if you have das eat somewhere else, that it can make the makom the same. It sounds like there is something with the person's das where he makes it according to Shmuel. Maybe that's
yeah. So there definitely is, but we'll see in a minute how far we take that. According, well, okay. So hold your question.
This would make it even like a bigger breach, kind of. I mean, we know that I'm not saying I got confused with like that whole concept, but it makes it like not only am I going to Malcolm Acher, I even have in mind that my das is not to be here. So I'm on the extreme of not being Kiddush Malcolm Suda. Maybe that's Tosfos Kiddush a little bit. He's saying even then you can still be mostly everybody or someone else. I don't know if it's necessary.
Yeah, again, why would that be necessary?
What?
Again, why would that be necessary? But hold your points because it's going to come up in a minute. Let's go a little further into this. Hold that point. So, okay. So what else we're going to talk here before we go weiter. Okay, one other point here before we get into the real sort of das that we get to spot up. One other point is that so Tosfos brought a raya. This is more of a technical question, but it really gets down to a yesod as well. That Tosfos brings a raya that Bistama. I'm sorry. That Tosfos brings a raya. Okay, we'll go a little further in Tosfos and we'll talk more. He says, if there are no orchim there, you shouldn't make kiddush. Have a bracha levatala. You're not mostly anybody that's mamash bracha levatala to come along to Shmuel. Vein larber makadosh kan al das shirot zalecha b'makam acher moed Shmuel. Diyesh kiddush. You can't say he's going to bring a raya, but you cannot say. Perhaps you want to say, well, maybe Shmuel only said his din stam. If you make kiddush and you didn't think about where you're going to eat somewhere else, then if you decide to eat somewhere else, that doesn't help. But if you have das to eat somewhere else to begin with, then Shmuel's moda, the yesh kiddush shalom makamasuda. The das helps. The whole machos is only stam. So you can't say that. Why? The fact that Gemara asked a question like that why should we, according to Shmuel, why in the world would you make kiddush in shul? What are you being kind with that? What's the point? So how could you ask that question in such a way? There could be a very much be a point. You could just tell everybody in shul to have das b'shas kiddush to eat somewhere else. The Gemara could not have asked a kasha in that way. The fact that it does ask that, we see clearly the Gemara is taking on, according to Shmuel, das does not help to eat from makam acher, to be considered kiddush makam suda. Okay, so we'll talk about. I want to talk first about a technical point, and then we'll get into the really yesod of what Tosas means over here. Just one technical point is that the Marsha says that Tosas brought a raya only from Shmuel, from the kasha of Lama Kedusha Be'Knishta. Tosas could have also brought a raya to this from the Gemara right afterwards, where it says that from the Gemara of Rabbah, the Gemara says in Kuf Aleph Amud Aleph, Vaf Rabbah Savar Ein Kiddush L'Makam Suda, Damar Abaya Ki Avina Be'Mar Ki Ava Makadesh Amarlan Ta'imu Midi, Dima Arazlisu L'Shpiza Misakra L'Kushvaga, L'Mikdash L'Hu Be'Sachila, Kedusha D'Hachalan of Kisu, Ein Kiddush L'Makam Suda. So Rabbah used to tell us Talmidim all would come and they would be out of town where they lived by him, and they would all stay in different people, do different ushpizin, they would be guests by people. So they were all by him, they davened by him, and then he'd make kiddush and say everybody should eat something, which they say means they should eat some pas, eat a little bit of bread here. So that way, because maybe you'll get back to, you don't know the people you're staying by the time you get there, the candles will go out, and you're not going to be able to eat over there. So you're not yotz. So you won't be yotz with kiddush over here unless you ate something. So you see that in kiddush elav makam suda. That's the Gemara. So the Marsha is asking, why don't you bring a raya from there as well? That it doesn't help to eat somewhere else. You can't have das, because otherwise you just say, here my kiddush over here now, and the candle goes out over there, and you won't be able to make kiddush over there. So at least you'd be able to with my kiddush, and you have das to eat over there. You'll be able to eat something. That's the Marshal's kasha. So the Karni Reim on the Marshal says, I don't understand your kasha. I understand the kasha. Monashach. There's two pshatim in Rava's case. According to the Rashban, the pshat is you're going to get there and eat nothing. And the candles will go out, and you have nothing. You won't be able to eat food at all. Nothing will be able to be found, so you won't eat anything. If you're not going to eat anything, then it's not nugiyah to toast the shaila of making kiddush over here to eat over there. Won't be any eating over there. So what's the shaykhus to the shaila of the and if you want to learn like Tosas learns on Kuf Aleph Amud Aleph that he brings that shot down and he brings another shot, then maybe the candles will go out and then you'll go to eat in a different house. You eat at somebody else's house. Like you'll figure it out. Once you get there and the candles go out, there's no food, you can't eat, so you'll figure out someplace else to go. So the Karni Raven says, even according to that shot as well, is also you can't say that you made kiddush over here to eat over there. Where's the over there? Over there was where he's staying. He's going to get there. He's not going to eat over there either. So you can't say, well, the das is just anywhere you'll eat, that'll be das. So maybe he doesn't understand the kasha of the Marsha. However, the Rush does bring this raya. The Marsha that says he should arrive from there. The Rush, when he brought a raya to this din, you can't have das over here to eat over there, brought the same raya as Tosas plus the raya of the Marsha. So it comes out that this shaila, this kasha of the Marsha is really machlok sushonin. Tosas held you can't bring a raya, maybe because of the words of the Karni Reim. The Rush holds you could bring a raya. So what about all the kashas of the Karni Reim? There's no food over there. There's no das. And you can eat someplace else. So what are you going to say? So what you have to say that according to the second shot in Tosas, Kiddush and Makom Suda doesn't necessarily have to mean in a specific place. On the tzad that das would help, it would be enough just to say, I have das to eat a Suda, wherever it is. And that would qualify to, in other words, once you're already not eating mamish in the same makom, it's not in the Suda, if das is going to take care of it, so the Rosh is holding, and the Rosh are holding that das to eat in another place would be just to eat, period, wherever that is. I don't have to specify a specific place. And therefore, the raya is a good raya, because it could have been a raya that why wouldn't Rabbah just say, I know you guys are going to eat somewhere. If you're not here, you're going to eat somewhere, whether it's your place where you're staying or the candles not go out, you might go somewhere else. Have das to eat wherever it is. And since Rabbah didn't say that, we see that das doesn't help. So you have to hold to begin with that that's the way das would work to bring that raya. So that's the machlokas Tosfos and the Rosh, that the Rosh brings that raya, because the Rosh holds that das, the makom acher, would mean anywhere. But Tosfos holds no, it's kiddush or makom suda. In order to turn that das turn into kiddush or makom suda, even in the Havamina, Tosfos is being docha this, but even in the Havamina to say this, it would only be if you actually specified a makom be considered a makom suda, be considered a raya to this din. So that would be the machlokas Tosfos and the Rosh, whether it's a raya from there or not. How do you define kiddush or makom suda if das would help for a different place? So you could say there's no nafkamina in this at all, because anyway, Tosfos doesn't hold of this, and the Rosh doesn't hold of it. The might say it is going to be a big nafkamina, at least in one side of the skakira, because this side that Tosfos is being docha is actually the Rosh brings that down the halacha l'maisa, held that way. The Rav Nissim Gaon, he brings Megillah Star Rav Nissim Gaon, held that das to eat b'makom acher and a bais acher does help, and machlokas is only stam. Like Tosfos said, ein lomar that's only machlokas stam, but das does help. So he taka holds that way. The Rav Nissim Gaon. So Rav Nissim Gaon. So what about the raya from the Gemara? The Lama the Kedusha Bekedishta. Tosfos had a good raya. What does he do with that? So the Rosh answered that he'll learn not that it won't help if they mekadosh in shul to eat somewhere else. It was a different kind of kasha. The kasha was since there will be since people are visiting, nobody understands such a lamdan. Understand the reason people are being yotzei kiddush is because they have das to eat somewhere else, because there's nothing tangible in that das. So they'll just mistakenly think that we hold like Rav that kiddush works if the shalom comes to them. You want that das. So a mikshul will come out of that. So lama the kedusha bekedishta, why would you do kiddush in a way it's going to cause a mikshul for people to think that we hold kiddush afil the shalom consider like Rav, we hold like Shmuel, and it only works because you have das. Since there'll be a mikshul will come out, then we can't say that. So
in the Rosh, Rebbe said that the Rosh comes off of that raya. That Rosh entertains that it could possibly be a good raya, and Tosfos never entertains that. Is that the difference?
right.
How the Rosh answers
the Rosh says bring it as a raya. Don't think that kiddush works to have kiddush here. And Shmuel will agree if you have das makam acher. So he brings both rayas. He brings raya from Beiknisha and the raya from Rabbah.
And why does he come off of that in the end? The Rosh?
No, he himself remains with that. Just he doesn't hold like a Nissim Gaon. He asks that of the kasha on Rav Nissim Gaon. We can answer Rav Nissim Gaon that the Rosh himself answers Rav Nissim Gaon in the first raya that the kasha of making kiddush in shul is really a kasha of mikshul, not a kasha of would it work or not. But I guess rhetorically we'll have to say that he didn't really need to answer the raya from Rabbah because of the kasha of the Karnei Reim. That Manushach, you don't really have das to have kiddush from Masuda, because you're not, in case you don't eat over there, you're not going to eat at all. Or if you do eat, it's a whole different place. Maybe Rav Nissim Gaon held like Tosfos that and that prat that kiddush, the das would have to be in a specific place. So it wouldn't help to have das wherever I'm going to end up eating. Obviously, Rav Nissim Gaon held that's not a raya because he holds this Misa.
So Rav Nissim Gaon holds that you could have das you could do kiddush even if it's not b'makom suda, if you have das to do it in a makom suda, as long as potentially either a specific place, depending on how he comes out in that machlokas.
Right.
Okay, and that's what the Rosh is just bringing to, the Rosh is not the Rush doesn't agree with him. He's just he agrees with Tosfos that you cannot do das. He's just bringing a raya for. He's just saying that would be a raya for Rav Nissim Gaon, and explaining how he would deal with the people doing it in shul. Why it was a problem was just because that people wouldn't understand what was going on.
And it would cause a mixture for people to mistakenly think that we pass like Rav.
Okay, so it comes out to machlokas geonim. So it's
machlokas between with Nissim going on one side and Tosfos and the Rosh on the other side. Okay. And that's it's Yisodas to machlokas, but the halacha l'maisa we paskin not that way. We'll see as when we get next time to the Shulchan Aruch next week. The Gemara comes for that. But just I want to go further in Tosfos and just Tosfos goes the following: the raya to Nissim Gaon is the Yerushalmi, which Tosfos is going to bring down, and we'll see what Tosfos does with that. It says, "Niu in makom lamakom b'bayis echad gegon igra la'ara." Nira de Moda Shmuel in Kiddush Be'igra Kadei Le'echol Ba'ara. The Chashuv Kiddush Makom Suda. In other words, the following. Tosfos says that even though I'm cholok on the Nissim Gaon's Yisod of Das, that's only benegea to Bais LaBais. That their Das doesn't help because there's din Kiddush Makom Suda. However, in the same bais, but if it's me'igra la'ara or it's from one room to the next, or the second floor to the third floor, first floor, all that does help. And it's going to be a raya from Yerushalmi that's a raya against him, but he's going to be dochak the Yerushalmi to fit into his shop. So it's a pella. But Yerushalmi to Kamar, Yaakov Hashem Shmuel, Kiddush Abayis Zev, and Nimlach Abayis Acher, Tzarech L'Kadosh. Shmuel says that from bais to bais, I need another Kiddush. Rav Oshi Amar Rav, Misha Sukasa, Areva Allah, Mekadosh Leil Yom Tov Achron Bebesoy, Volcha B'Sukasoi. He holds that Rav holds if you want to sit outside, not really in sukkah, just you want to go sit in the gazebo where it's nicer outside. It's hot in the house and it's nice outside. You can go out there and sit. Amar Bon V'Lo Pligi. My Amar Rav B'Shelo Hayva Daito Lechol B'Bayis Kiddush. That Rav says it works because you didn't have das to eat in your house. You had das at Shas Kiddush in the house. It's more convenient to make Kiddush in the house, and you have das to eat out in your gazebo. My Damar Shmuel, and that Shmuel said that doesn't work. Pastas mi bais labais is because you had das to eat where you said the Kiddush. You did. In other words, you did not have das to eat in a different place. But so the Yerushalmi Pashtas is saying that if you would have das to eat in a bais acher, then you make Kiddush, then it would work, according to Shmuel. Vadakamar de lo pligi, hainu makom lo makom achad bais. That they say lo pligi, even though Rav clearly seems to be talking about from a bais to a sukkah, he says lo pligi means makom achad bais. Somehow he's dochik to say that bais to sukkah is the gazebo somehow is considered one house with his house. And even when Shmuel said, or when we said mefurish the lashon bais the bais acher, we really mean two chadarim in the same bais, big docha. That's why Nissim Gaon brings a raya from this Yerushalmi that then the Yerushalmi explicitly is saying that das helps me bais the bais, bein the Rav, bein the Shmuel, and just Tosfos being dochak because Tosfos can be so well that das should make a difference from bais to bais. It must mean two chadarim in the same bais. That's the only way you can learn shot. V'lav dafka nukap Yerushalmi kiddush bais nukalacha bais acher zashu shelo yachol Yerushalmi im shachshlani. He's trying to make it that there should not be a machlokas bavli in Yerushalmi. What does he mean bavli in Yerushalmi? He means the bavli to Tosfos is pashat when the Gemara asks the kasha from why make it kiddush in shul. What's the reason to make kiddush in shul? The bavli is saying clearly that it would not help from shul to house. So house to house doesn't help even with das. That was Tosfos right. So Tosfos holds that clearly that's what the bavli holds, and not to make a machlokas, you have to say to Yerushalmi. He'd rather be dochak and lashon Yerushalmi, make a big dochak. He'd rather do that than make a machlokas bavli Yerushalmi. It's not necessary to do that. Whereas according to the Nissim Gaon, it's not a machlokes Bavli Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi means what it says, and the raya that you're bringing from the Knishta is not a raya, because it just means it shouldn't be a kilkel, it shouldn't be a mikshal, but for sure it would work. So for Kira, there is no machlokes, and Shmuel Taka agrees that it works to be vice if you have das. So we have two different worlds going on over here between the Nissim Gaon and Tosas over here, and Tosas. Now, the Pashtus, you would say. So number one, just on the side, there's clearly, according to everybody, there's clearly at least one machlokas Bavli Yerushalmi. That the Yerushalmi assumes that Rav holds Kiddush and Makom Suda. So there's clearly machlokas about that. Our Rav, the way he's quoted by us, in our Gemara, holds Yesh Kiddush Shalom Makom Suda. You don't need Kiddush Makom Suda at all. No such din. And for Karen, so they ask, why make Kiddush at home? Okay, to be mostly everybody else, but you're Yotzi yourself. But the Yerushalmi takes on that Rav does hold that, and the only reason it works to be Bais the Sukkah is because you had Das, B'Shas Kiddush, and the Bais in the Sukkah. So Rav and Shmuel and Yerushalmi both hold you need Kiddush and Makom Suda. So that for sure there's a machlokas about. The shal is in Shmuel, is there a machlokas Bavli Yerushalmi in Shmuel? So Tosas and Nissim Gaon both hold there's not a machlokas Bavli Yerushalmi, but on two ends of the spectrum. Tosas says there's no machlokas, and for sure, when the Yerushalmi said bais the bais, it means only cheder lecheder basa bais. And Nissim Gaon says fakir, no, there's no machlokas, and everyone agrees. According to Shmuel, you could make kiddush in one house for another house. So Pashtus, I would say, and das according to Nissim Gaon is very powerful. It works even from bais to bais. Tosas doesn't discount the whole musig of das. Tosas is holding that it does work, but what's the Nekudas and Machlokas between the Nissim Gaon and Tosas? How do we understand this Machlokas? So I think at first glance, and then we'll have also a second glance, but at first glance, I think the Machlokas is that is the din Kiddush and Makom Suda, is a din Makom Kiddush and Makom Suda a din be'etzem that you actually need Makom Suda? It's a din in the Makom. You have to have both the Kiddush and the Suda in the same Makom. For what reasons, we'll see why, but there's a din in the Makom like that. Or it's not a din in the Makom. It's not, you don't really, Betzim really need a Kiddush Makom Suda. Kiddush Makom Suda is really a borrowed term to say that there should not be a Hesach Hadas or a Hefsek between the Kiddush and the Suda. You need that there's a connection between the Kiddush and the Suda. So as long as there's not a Hesach Hadas between them, then they still belong to each other, even though they might not be in the same place, but they still are connected because they're connected, because they're mechuber together. That seems to be the machlokas Tosas and the Nissim Gaon. Tosas turns with Kapshuta, the Gemara, Kapashtus, the way we learned till now, that there's din Kiddush and Makom Suda. Read my lips. I'm saying, but Makom Suda, you needed the Makom, it's a din in the Makom. So to take the Makom Achar, the Gamre, I can't say. The Gabe, Bais Echad, if it's Cheder, the Cheder, the Bais Echad, anything under the same roof is really Makom Echad. So then why do you need Das according to Tosas? You need Das only there shouldn't be, on top of the fact that there's a din Makom, also there can't be a Hesach Das between the Kiddush and the Suda. So in order not to be a Hesach Das, since for going from the basement to the third floor, there's a lot in between, whatever, it's on the same roof, so technically it's the same Makom, but I might have Hesach Das, because I didn't think of it, it's not the same room and everything, so I might be Mesiach Das. So that Tosas requires that you have positive Das from Makom within the same Makom in order not to have a Hesach Das. But Be'etzem, it's really totally in one thing. It's the Ikar totally in the Din Makom that you have it. And the Das is like a side point to that the Gavra, b'tzad the Chesed of the Kiddush and the Suda, you have Makom Echad. B'tzad the Gavra, it shouldn't be Mesiach Das. So we have positive Das. And when you make Kiddush in the basement, to eat on the third floor.
I mean, is that also how is that Chakira also going to be, like, how would that play out regarding like standing or sitting for Kiddush? Was it, I think we said, I don't remember if we said in Shiur, maybe it was Mechavrusa or something, we came up with that like one of the big differences between standing versus sitting for Kiddush was that ideally it would be better to stand because of edus, but because it has to be b'makom suda, so people hold that you have to sit. And that's how all the different minhagim start coming out from there. So,
actually, the Rishonim say something different. You could be in the Makom Suda standing the whole time as long as you're in the same Makom. The sitting is according to some shitas in order to motzi birch sanenin. So there's a din to be yoshvin. It's really it's Allah and not Hilchos Kiddush and Hilchos Brachos. You motzi somebody else in birch sanenin, you should be sitting. So that's a shayla that goes to a shayla whether break your goffin is birch sanenin or birch mitzvahs. That's what it really gets down to. But the din to sit will be only to mutzi somebody else a bracha.
It wouldn't connect at all to whether it's b'makom suda.
No. Okay. But as long as you're standing in the same place, it wouldn't matter if you're standing or sitting. Look at most kiddushes, people are standing the whole time. And they're eating, and nobody ever sat anywhere.
If we say that kiddush makom suda, the Tosfos holds that makom is literally makom. That makes Rabbi's question stronger in a way. It's like in the beginning of Tosfos. And so the Shmuel l'chora, the das really shouldn't make any difference. There is no makom, kiddush makom suda.
But that's good for what Tosfos is proving. It's coming. Tosfos is coming lafuke. He knows those are missing going. Well, it's not that way. So he's saying, I'm letting you know that it doesn't work because I'm bringing a ride from the Gemara. However, he's not totally discounting the svara of missing going. At least for this prat, that you need to have das makom in the same makom. So as long as you have it's considered the chefs of a makom because it's under the same roof. And now will come into play something like Missing going that I need das to make it. I shouldn't have hesed das. So
Rabbi had a deal from the beginning of Tosfos. Rabbi asked on that why bring in that he had in mind to eat to make it somewhere else or die to left or makom acher.
Yes, and it's got to be. We're gonna have to probably just say it's orchid and milsa. It's not. He doesn't. That was. I would rather make it lav dafka than have it be a kasha. That's. I don't think it's really. I'm just pointing it out. Either it's kasha or it's lav dafka. It's just orchid and milsa that people are going. The normal person is going to be eating somewhere else. So it really means lafuke eating here. But not that it really would make a difference. He's eating over there. That's all I have to say. So this is Tosfos side of the I think the Rebbe going the pshat in him is going to be that the kiddush makom suda is really lav dafka. That whole din is lav dafka. Kiddush makom suda just means there shouldn't be a disruption between the kiddush and the suda. The two should be connected. So it shouldn't be makom acher. If you didn't have das to eat somewhere else, and suddenly you do, then if it's shlo makom suda without das, then it's taka. It's a hesach das. So the kiddush and the suda are disconnected. Therefore, Mr. Gon says that if you have das, I have it sad to say maybe the Mr. Gon holds that the koach of das is to stretch where you are to be this makom to be like the makom acher is considered the same makom. I think that's difficult to say. That's like sort of that something magical like that. I think it's more mustaber to say in Mr. Gon is that there is no din makom. There's no din of a chefs of a makom. The pshat and kiddush makom suda is just that there shouldn't be a hesach das between the kiddush and the suda, and therefore it helps to have if you have positive das from this house to eat on that other house. So then the fact that I went to another house doesn't constitute a hesach das. So that'll be the machlokas, the two, whether or not there's dinim of a din makom or it's really just a din das, a hesach das. And I think there might be totally in the two lashonos of the Rashbam. Look at the Rashbam in the beginning of Kuf Aleph and Aleph. He says, "Afidei kiddush lo yatsa," according to Shmuel, "Kedaparshin in time elakaman ein kiddush lo makom suda." The Gemara says that beferish t'chsiv the karasa l'shabbos oneg. It's more than on Kufav. The karasa l'shabbos oneg, but makom shetakore l'shabbos kalamar kriya de kiddush shamte oneg umedrashu. It's a drasha. There's a discussion about why he has to say this word medrashu. But he's saying it's a drasha. It's a drasha without it's a megala to us that it's a din in the makom. It's a din that the place that you make kiddush, the place that you're kari Shabbos, that's the place you should also have your own Shabbos. Inami, Svarahi, or if not that drasha, there's a svara. Mid ikva kiddush al yayin, kedetani the command zachari al yayin, the stama al yayin shebeshas suda hukva chashiv. The stama you need yayin that's b'shas suda, because it's not just, it could be medayik from the word zachari al hayayin, the yayin. It's just not yayin but hayayin. It's a type of a drasha. It's a svara or whatever that. You need yayin chashav. Yayin is considered more chashav if it's yayin that you're kaveh the suda on, b'shas suda. So according to the second drasha, there's really no emphasis on the makam really. It's just that the two should be yayin b'shas suda, meaning that there should be a connection between the yayin and the suda. The first shot in the Rashbam, he's emphasizing the makam, and fakir is saying it lahevia, it's saying explicitly that the makam shatakari the Shabbos, Kari the Kiddush, Sham over there in that place, so that's clearly a din in the makom. We'll have to see why. There's more to talk about this, but the second shot is not really emphasizing the fact that it's in the same makom. It's just that it shouldn't be that the yayin of the Kiddush should be shaykh to the Suda, that which gives it the chashivas that needs to be considered yayin shel Kiddush. So according to that second shot, it's possible to entertain the thought that if I would have das from one place to another, it's not that I'm stretching the makom, it's that I don't need a makom. I just need that the Kiddush has a shaykhus to the Suda. So when it's in the same place, even without das, it's shaykh to the Suda because it's in the same place. Of course it's shaykh. So Kiddush makom Suda works. But if it's not in the same place, as long as I have das, then I might not have the same makom, but I have another way that I'm a kayim the kesher between the Kiddush and the Suda. So these two studim in the Rashbam open up the possibility for this machlokas tostos, I think, and Reb Nissim Gaon. Reb Nissim Gaon is learning that it's just a din of shaychus, and therefore das helps even to another place. And Tosfos holds that in the makom, that has to mamish be the same makom, and we're defining the makom in this case by anything that's under the same roof, not beyond that. Okay, we've only just started. There's so much more to talk about, but I guess we'll have to. We're way past time already, so I'll have to continue on with this. It's going to get very much into the into Amud Beis, into the following sugya in Kuf Aleph Amud Aleph, and even a little bit in Kuf Aleph Amud Beis, to really come to a real Havana. And what we just said right now is really just the tip of the iceberg. We're getting much more deep into this Indian. So I already put out I'm going to repeat it again. Put it out in the Marmakonos this coming week. Did everybody see yet the Bir Lacha and Kuf Ayin Ches? Everybody able to see that? That sends out in the text. I guess not.
I looked at it. I looked at the Mishnah Berurah. I don't remember.
There's a long Bir Lacha. Yeah, usually from the blank stares you can know.
We didn't make it.
Okay, so I'll assume nobody saw that yet, and I'll put that in the Marmakonos for next week, because from there, because this is going to get down to a sodistic shaila of. I'll just throw this out. Keep this in mind, that the two studim that we're saying over here. I'll just throw out a nafkamina. Can we learn out the din of shinui makom for hilchos brachas from this din of kiddush or not? Can we learn out din of shinui makom hilchos brachas? Can we learn it out from what we're saying over here for kiddush? Is there any shaychus at all or not? Well, it might depend, right? It depends. If we're dealing with das and hesach das, so then maybe there's room to have a kesher between the two. If there's new dinim over here of makom kiddush makom suda, which is a specific drasha legabe kiddush makom suda, then perhaps there's not going to be any room to make a tzushta between hilchos brachos and shinui makom brachos and shinui makom kiddush. Maybe there's a totally different dinim when you get to kiddush than there are for brachos. So I'm just throwing that out as a cliffhanger. We'll see that in the hemshech of the sugya and that bir halacha, and So we'll have more makams coming out. So, I was going to say something about Hanukkah, but we're way past time. So, okay. So, after Hanukkah, good Shabbos.
Shabbos, happy Hanukkah.
Khan,
Thank you.
Take care.
thank you, Rabbi.
Take care.